Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're embarking on a mythic journey, a really fascinating evolution from blinding light into absolute shadow to uncover the psychological and linguistic secrets of the morning star. For centuries, this mesmerizing symbol has just hovered right at the edge of our cultural consciousness. It originally represented this beautifully unified cosmic cycle, which is something we humans slowly and, quite frankly, artificially fractured over time. So we're going to untangle the etymological roots and the deep psychological shadows of this ancient archetype, because it's a story that has fundamentally shaped human history.
Really think about the sheer scale of this transformation for a second. How exactly did a beautifully neutral celestial marker, just the quiet, predictable orbit of a glowing planet in our early morning sky, get warped by human language into the ultimate symbol of absolute evil? It's a staggering historical leap. We're going to trace exactly how early humanity's sense of boundless wonder was systematically flattened into this rigid, terrifying narrative of moral binary, forever splitting the heavens into a battleground of light versus dark.
Section 1. The Original Lightbringer. Let's begin our journey back in the light, exploring that original, unified cosmic cycle before any of this linguistic alchemy took hold.
Linguistically, this is absolutely fascinating. The term Lucifer actually stems from the Latin roots lux, meaning light, and fere, meaning to bring, so it translates directly to light-bringer. In early Greco-Roman astronomy, they used this title simply for the planet Venus when it popped up in the morning sky. It was completely separate from any later theological associations with evil. Philological history shows us that the transition of this word from a totally neutral celestial marker to the name for a fallen entity was just a slow translation shift. It perfectly demonstrates how human language artificially separates unified cosmic cycles into strict moral binaries over time.
And you can see a massive artificial gap here. We go from a neutral celestial marker to this concept of the etiological absolute evil. Originally, the star represented a unified cycle. The light that falls into the horizon at dusk is literally the exact same light that rises the next morning. But human language has this innate, almost relentless tendency to categorize, dissect, and separate. Eventually, our words fractured that natural cycle into warring opposing forces, laying the groundwork for a massive shift in how we tell stories.
Which brings us to Part 2, Semantic Drift and the Fall. Here is where our fable takes a turn, plunging from the light of original unity straight into the shadow of institutional control.
Comparative philology paints such an interesting picture here. In early Semitic and Ugaritic mythologies, the morning star deity, like the figure Atar, was this complex, tragic character who attempted to scale the heavens but failed. It represented a natural cycle of cosmic ambition and physical limitation. But as these ancient myths were absorbed into institutional religious frameworks over the centuries, translators systematically flattened that nuanced, tragic archetype. They turned it into a strict, unforgiving moral binary of disobedience and absolute damnation.
And this linguistic flattening, it serves a very specific purpose. It's the weaponization of language. When institutional powers translate myths, they routinely narrow the meaning of fluid, threshold terms to establish social order. They replaced a messy, deeply human archetype with a simplistic narrative of damnation just to enforce obedience. Basically, they turned a symbol of psychological curiosity into a blunt tool for social control. And honestly, this matters today because we still do this. We constantly flatten complex human behaviors into simple categories of good and evil just to maintain our own comfortable worldviews.
Section 3. Archetype of the Shadow. Moving our lens from linguistics over to psychology, we really need to look inward and face the morning star.
From a Jungian psychological framework, the morning star is the ultimate archetype of the shadow, and its necessary integration into the conscious mind. Let's be real. Human brains are naturally wired for cognitive laziness. Processing the world in strict binary categories of safe versus unsafe or good versus evil just takes way less mental energy. But because of this rigid binary thinking, we ruthlessly repress our dark, chaotic impulses. And that repression, it leads directly to profound psychological fragmentation. Instead of confronting our own inner chaos, we take the easy way out and project those repressed traits outward to create a convenient societal villain.
When we map out these two contrasting states of being, a really powerful truth emerges. The repressed self desperately clings to this idea of artificial purity, which really only serves to fracture the psyche. But the integrated self tells a completely different story. The morning star teaches us that true enlightenment isn't about frantically denying our dark impulses. it requires courageously facing them. Profound psychological growth happens when we finally realize that the dark, messy soil of our struggles is exactly where our highest, most radiant potential actually takes root.
Section 4. The Threshold of Dissonance. Now we arrive at the threshold itself, that incredibly ambiguous boundary caught halfway between night and day.
In cognitive psychology, the morning star serves as a brilliant, externalized representation of liminality and cognitive dissonance. You know that highly uncomfortable mental state of holding two completely opposing beliefs at the exact same time? Because our brains crave easy categorization, a symbol that simultaneously belongs to the dead of night, yet heralds the bright dawn, totally shatters our comfort zones. By embodying both transgression and grace all at once, the morning star forces our psyche out of those lazy binaries and thrusts us right into the raw discomfort of the threshold.
But here is the thing. We actually desperately need that discomfort. When we are forced to hold opposing beliefs, we violently break out of those lazy comfort zones. We stop viewing the world in just black and white. This threshold discomfort isn't a bad thing. It's the exact crucial psychological mechanism required to trigger critical reflection. Navigating this dissonance is what sparks higher-level problem-solving, cultivates deep self-awareness, and ultimately, it's how we achieve genuine, lasting wisdom.
Section 5. Integrating the Inner Darkness. Our mythic journey culminates right here, in the realization that true enlightenment requires us to integrate this foundational shadow.
The core takeaway from our sources today perfectly synthesizes everything we've talked about. Growth does not come from maintaining some illusion of artificial purity. It comes from recognizing that our highest potential, our brightest light, is deeply inextricably rooted in our unconscious struggles, our darkness. The light and the dark aren't distinct, warring enemies like linguistic history tried to tell us. They're perfectly intertwined mirrors of the complex human experience. Your highest capacity for good is fundamentally tied to acknowledging your capacity for darkness.
So, to leave you with a final provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer, if it's truly the case that our brilliant light is born directly from our suffocating darkness, and that the morning star's cycle has always been completely unbroken, what are you hiding from yourself right now? Out of a desperate desire for artificial purity, what vital part of your own shadow is waiting in the dark to be integrated so you can finally reach your highest potential?